Hi guys, welcome back to the Art of Server, and welcome back to part 2 in the series of videos where I'm going to show you how to install the 2.5-inch 4-bay system into the Dell Precision T7910 workstation. If you haven't seen the first video, I do recommend that you go back and take a look at that video. I show you guys how to install these 2.5-inch drive bays using aftermarket components. And in the situation where the official Dell kit is not available, you might find that video really helpful. But in this part 2 video, I'm going to show you actually how to install the official Dell kit. So let's go ahead and get started with an unboxing of that kit, which I have right here. All right, so here is the official Dell kit to install the 4 2.5-inch bays. It is Dell part number W80XH. And I'll leave a link to search eBay for this part down in the video description below. If this is what you're looking for, please use that link and it'll help the channel out. All right, let's go ahead and open this guy up. Alright, so we have several components. This looks like the drive cage itself. Let's take this out. Includes a set of screws. I'm sure these will be useful. Let me just kind of detach it. And here are the official Dell drive trays using these plastic toolless drive trays. So you can basically install your drives in these trays without any screws. So that's kind of nice. All right, so let's go ahead and put this aside. And included are 2 fans. So I mentioned this in the last video in part 1, that basically the compartment where these drive bays are installed has no airflow. And so for the Dell kit, they have these 2 additional fans that add the additional airflow to cool the drives. With the IC dock device has its own built-in fans. So these are a little bit bigger fans, so hopefully they're not going to be very loud, but we'll see how it turns out. All right, and finally we have, I think, is the SAS connectors. So we have a SFF80 643 connector, and this is going to go to the onboard port. And these are essentially what consists of the backplane component. We'll install these into the chassis, and the drives will be inserted into these SAS connectors here. So FYI, these are SAS connectors, but they will of course accept SATA as well. But you know, since we're talking about SAS3 here, what you're probably going to want to use here are SAS3 SSDs, especially the enterprise grade SSDs. All right, so that looks like the entire kit. Let's go ahead and put the stuff we don't need back in the box and get started on the installation. All right, so we'll start by removing the door on the side here, and we'll unlock the front grille. All right, and pull down on this little latch, and I should be able to open and remove the front grille. So I've already removed the aftermarket kit that I installed in the first video, so we're just going to start from scratch in installing the Dell kit. So I'm going to have to open up the back panel in order to get this drive cage out and install the Dell kit. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so to open the back panel, we're gonna have to remove these 3 screws, and this entire project should only require 1 tool, which is a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. So let's go ahead and remove these screws. All right, then all we need to do right now is to pull this back panel towards the back. So the first thing we're going to do is remove this 5 1/4 inch drive bay, and there are several screws involved. We're going to have 2 screws up in front, and then there are these holes on the side to allow you to access the screws that are recessed towards the back over here. And so let's go ahead and just remove the front ones first. And then insert your screwdriver through the access holes to gain access to the screws that are in the back. This step helps if you have a magnetic screwdriver so that the screws don't fall. So I'm inserting the screwdriver through the hole, and hopefully you guys can see there's the other screw back there. All right, and we have 2 more screws on the bottom. Now, like I said, it really helps to have your screwdriver magnetized so that you don't lose the screws once they come out. All right, so that should be it. And at this point, we should be able to remove the 5 1/4 inch drive cage. All right, so to install the 2 1/2 inch drive cage, the first thing I'm going to do is take out all the drive trays. We're going to have to access the screws through the screw holes again, so these drive trays tend to get in the way, and it's a good idea to just get them out first. So this is going to attach into where the 5 1/4 inch drive bay was, and there will be 2 front screws as well as 1 screw on top and 1 screw on the bottom. As you can see, there is an access hole for you to insert your screwdriver. So let's go ahead and put this in. All right, so one thing I'm noticing right now, and this is my first time installing this, is that there's a little bit of resistance in getting this drive cage fully seated in. And so if you look through the drive screw hole, you can see that the alignment is a little bit off. So I think that I'm going to install these 2 screws first to kind of pull this thing into its position. And hopefully that will make the alignment of the top and bottom screws in the back align a little bit better. All right, so fortunately Dell uses the same screw size for this entire project, so there are no screws of different sizes. Let's see if I'm trying to catch that thread first. All right, there we go. So I've got the first front screw installed, and that definitely did seem to pull the drive cage into the right position. All right, so now looking through the hole, I can see that the screw holes are much better aligned. So definitely, if you're installing this, definitely do these front screws first to kind of get the cage properly aligned. All right, so I'm going to put the screw for the bottom hole on the screwdriver, and again, this is where having a magnetized screwdriver tip helps. All right, and then similarly for the top screw. All right, so now we have the drive cage installed. We're going to have to install the SAS connectors. All right, so here are the 2 individual SAS connector brackets, and I believe this one is probably better on the top, and then I'll have this one on the bottom, and here is the cable that's going to go to the SAS controller, and then this is the power, which we're going to connect to this connector over here. So this looks like I need to slide in this portion into this bracket right there, and then I should be able to secure it with a screw here, and possibly, well, I don't see another screw hole, but let's align this first and see how it looks. Okay, so yeah, there's a screw hole for the top and the bottom, so that should be just fine. And I'll also insert the bottom one into position, and so we'll need 4 screws here. The kit does include a bag of screws, so I'm reusing some of the screws that we just took out, but oh, well, I guess I can use these too, but these are all identical screws. They're standard PC case screws, so they're not hard to find if you don't have enough. All right. All right, another screw for the bottom. And then moving on to the bottom bracket here. And then one final screw all right, so that completes the installation of all the SAS connections. We'll go ahead and connect the power connector here. And then finally, before we go connect the SAS cable to the SAS control on the other side, we have to install some fans to make sure that we have some airflow going through here to cool these drives. All right, so here are the 2 fan kits that came with the Dell kit, and I believe these screw on to these holes here. Yep, and so there's some alignment. I don't know what you call these things, but there are 2 holes here that I believe will align with these 2 things that are sticking out of the tray here. So I believe this should go like this. Yep, like that, and then we'll screw it in. And then similarly for the bottom, like that. All right, so I need 2 screws each for each fan. Let me get that out of the way. All right, so I'm going to line that up. Line that up. Let me just get the cable out of the way a little bit. All right, before I tighten that down, let me put a screw on the top side as well. All right, so let's install the next fan. All right, so that completes the installation of the fan brackets, and let me put these wires. Let's see, we'll go through here. So I'm going to use this little cable management bracket here at the top to kind of hold down these cables a little bit. All right, and I'm going to snake these 2 cables. there are a pair of fan headers on the motherboard that's going to drive these fans, and so I'm going to go ahead and snake them through the top hole here. Hopefully you guys can see that. So we'll snake that through there, and we'll connect them later on when we get on the other side. Right. And one more. All right. So now before we flip over and connect all the stuff on the other side, let me also snake over this SFF8643 connector to the other side. So this one I'm going to snake through the hole on the bottom of the motherboard tray. All right, so I'll leave it like that, and I'll pull the rest through when I flip the machine around. All right, so here is that SFF8643 connector that I snaked through the hole on the bottom. I'm going to continue pulling it out, and I think that's probably going to be enough length for me to connect it. I don't want to pull it all the way out, just because it is a little bit longer, but I don't need the extra length, and I don't want the extra cables just kind of muddying up this side of the chassis. So I think this will be enough. But yeah, this is for the power connector for a GPU at the top. I don't need this right now, so let me just put that up in here. I have to say though, this is actually really nice that Dell included all these GPU power cables, because if you saw my videos on the HP, you actually have to pay extra to get those connectors, and the Dell just has them with additional connectors for various configurations. It's really nice that they included all this by default and didn't penny pinch on that, on cables. All right, so just as in part one, I'm going to remove this air shroud here in order to make a little bit more clearance so that I can plug this in. So let's go ahead and take some of these cables off the cable holder here. And again, to remove this air shroud, you have to pull on these two tabs, and then shift this whole air shroud out. All right, like that. I'll put that aside. And you know what, while I'm at it, I'm going to do the same at the top, because one of the fan connectors is also behind this air shroud. And I know this is going to be really hard to see on camera, but basically it's the same mechanism, except there's only one latch here. So this is a smaller piece. So all you have to do is basically pull down on this, and then again slide it out. All right, so let's go ahead and attach the SFF8643 connector here. Now I'm going to be a little bit mindful of, let's see, how I'm routing this, because I don't want this to get tangled up with all the GPU power connectors, as I might be using those later on. And so I'm just going to go ahead and bend this towards the SFF8643 connector on the motherboard and plug that in. Alright, so that should do it for the bottom connection. And then for the fans, these are the two headers for the two connectors for the fans that we installed. And so on the motherboard, you'll notice that there are two headers, one here that says fan HDD2, and then this one here says fan something. I'm sure it's printed on the motherboard. I can't see it right now, but anyway, all we have to do is basically connect these fan cables into those headers. All right, so there we have it, and I'll tuck away some of the excess cable into the back of the chassis, since we don't really need all that right now. All right, so that's what it looks like. And just making sure that they're fully seated in there. All right, so now we can put the fan shroud piece back in there. And again, this one is fairly simple. You just make sure that you slide it on to some brackets that are on the metal frame here. And once you hear that click, that is in place. All right, so we'll do the same on the bottom. Now this one's a little bit trickier, so we have to make sure this tab goes into the bracket or behind that bracket right there. All right. There we go. And I'll go ahead and connect the cables again where they were. All right, so that's all the wiring done. We've got the fans connected, we got the SAS connector connected, we have the fans installed. Let me flip this around. All right, and so we have the drive cage also connected, and we can now put the drive trays back in. So these are the original Dell toolless drive trays. All right, so there we have our 4 2.5-inch drive bays that are SAS3 capable. So I'll be installing some HGST, HUSM SAS3 SSDs in these later on. All right, so one last thing. We have all this excess cable. Let's just make sure that we have everything closed up. So yeah, there's a lot of this excess SAS cable. I think I'm going to keep most of it down here on the bottom. So yeah, they kind of gave us a really long cable that really didn't need to be this long. All right, I think that should be just fine for us to be able to close the lid. All right, let's go ahead and put the lid back on. All right, so to put the lid back on, I just want to make sure, keep an eye on all these cables and make sure that nothing gets pinched as we're closing. And then just slide it in. All right, so now we just have to attach the 3 screws. Looks like I'm going to need an extra screw from the bag. All right, so finally, we can now put the front grille. And so in the case of the official Dell kit, we're able to basically install the grille without having to remove the 5¼ inch dummy cover here. So this allows you basically, once you lock the front grille, it protects these drives from being pulled out casually by somebody, if that's something that matters to you. So we'll go ahead and press the lock button, and that prevents the front grille from being unlatched. And then finally, we can install the front cover. All right, and so that's it, guys. That's all it takes to install the Dell official 2.5 inch by 4 drive bays for the T7910. All right, so if you guys are interested in this kit, be sure to check out my affiliate link down in the video description below. And if you like this video, make sure to give me that thumbs up. And if you'd like to support this channel, please go check out my eBay store. I have all sorts of server and workstation parts. I'll also leave a link to that down in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and have a good day. Bye-bye.